Did you say live stream the stress?
No, live stream. Let's do it.
Oh, sorry.
Live stream the stress. Let's
Live
live stream the
stream.
stress.
Let's live stream the stress.
It's on, dude. It worked like a charm.
And you didn't have to hit the
Oh, it's up and running.
live stream the stress. Nice. It even caught
It
that.
caught
Live
that
stream
too.
the stress.
Sweet. Well, hey, everybody that's watching, all two of you currently.
That's right. Yeah, does it show us who is on there? Can we
I thought
spy on our people?
it
Doesn't
doesn't
matter. We're
say.
faithful to the few.
Yeah, this is great though. I
Yeah.
mean, that works smooth. For all you didn't know, we're trying to use the bells and whistles of YouTube streaming with scheduled meetings, scheduled live streams with Zoom, and it worked out. Got it figured out last night and clicked one button, and away we went. So that's pretty slick. We may never see Facebook again for live streaming.
Exactly.
So, yes, you're talking about crazy weather and whatnot, Tina. It's been like Jess and I were talking about this last week or this week, and just how the weather is not, it's just not conducive, not, it's been out of whack. But it's really kind of a canary in the in the coal mine kind of what's really going on in so many areas right now of life, and obviously, what's going on in the spiritual realm, especially. There's just a lot of swirlies, and some people feel it more than others. Ebbs and flows. It feels like we're feeling a lot of it in our area, and just working through it, trying to understand what what's going on, how to weather it successfully, help not just weather it, but to change it. And it hasn't. It feels like I'm out of my skin right now. There's so many different things are uh, awkward. I think the best word for it is just it's just everything's awkward right now. Everything doesn't feel right, doesn't wear right, doesn't smell right, doesn't respond the way you expect it to respond. Um, so awkward is probably the best word. Is I try to just struggle to find the words to describe what's going on. So
Yeah, you could say it's what's transitional, and there's so many changes going on. Technology, culture, geopolitics, economics, and but that's part of the human condition. I mean, the history books make it seem like there were pages turned, but the people who lived it, I doubt they felt, oh, well, this page is turned. I mean, maybe like D-Day or the end of World War II or the end of a
right,
war, the end of something that was it, all consuming, but in a weird way unifying. We're all experiencing this thing, but it's most of the time it's just a miasma of transition. Things are changing and unsettling, but I don't think culture and people and events and places change as fast as they have been. There's a ramping up of it, and we were
right.
made to we were made to traverse this as well. Like we were built for this, but it is different. Like is it a different spirit now on the face of the earth than there ever has been?
Right.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
definitely translating, and where Luke Agee had put on his Facebook thing today, it come from A School of Kingdom, and it was like a diagram, and it said orphan, son, king, and father. And it went from identity, like your root mindset. As an orphan would be fear, but a son, you would move into learning to get out of that fear to love. As a king, you would take that love higher to a leadership, and then as a into the father, then you would have legacy. And same way with your native language, where you're hearing lies, which were intentional or internal, and then them lies would turn into truth, and then you would turn into strategies, and then it would become your identity. And an emotional state where it was foreboding, then it would be peaceful as a son, confident as a king, moving in as the father is. So are we will move into compassionate to his compassion. And primary focus would be for us as an orphan would just survival, but learning to be a son, you get into relationship. And then as a king, you will be able to take that relationship and impact others. And you're actually a son and a daughter of the father. And for the last one, it was a signature mode of insecurity. And as a son, you're powerful. And as an orphan, you're insecure, but a son, you're powerful. A king, you have authority. And as you are into one with the father, you are empowered. You have this empowerment. So all of that was just moving from glory to glory, moving and becoming who you were meant to be. Becoming, to me, it's like you're becoming the kingdom so that you can bring the kingdom wherever you go. You are the kingdom, bringing it to the earth because you're in the earth, you're on the earth, but the kingdom's in you. And so that's how it flows out of the river of life from within you. You are a river flowing and bringing the kingdom to earth. But I actually had a dream last night, and I can remember just a smart piece of it. And I don't think it was a long dream. I think this was pretty much it. But for me to even, you know how it is to remember your dream sometime the next day is unusual. But when I was reading this, I was reminded, and it came back up about the dream. And it was like I was either on a Zoom call or talking with people, and it was just, I was overwhelmed thinking about we don't know who we are. We think we've been programmed to just think we're just a people. We're just here. We have a short little life. You live until you die to do your best you can. And everything you're going to get and all of who you are will be in eternity once you die. And I was like, we know that we're awakened to that's not true. And if we just knew who we are right now, that we're actually not just whatever we think a person is or have been brought up to think a person is, but we're a frequency, we're a sound, we're a vibration, and we have the power to heal. We have a power to heal others. We have a power within us. When you learn to operate as who you are, we have the power of authority. We have the power to change the atmosphere. We have the power to change the atmosphere in a room when you walk in. Like we're light beings. Our DNA carries so much. And we don't even have the words to explain who we are, but yet our spirit is awakened and we know that we're something that is more than we've ever thought ourselves to be.
Yeah.
But how does a light being increase their followers on social media? That's the question.
Question everybody wants to know. Yeah. I'd like to go back to that transition idea concept you're talking about, Eric,
Yeah.
about because we look at history, you pull a history book up and everything's broken into chapter and section. A nice subheading for each little new section of humanity. And everybody's
Yeah.
compartmentalized and categorized and organized chronologically, and it makes sense. And like you can connect all the dots, but that's not really how it played out, right?
No.
Everything, there's no such thing as a clean break in a lot of stuff. Everything is a transition into something else, a blending. a gradient. Life is gradient,
Yeah.
right? You don't go from complete. I mean, I shouldn't say that there's never a case where it's complete cutoff. Like one day you've got a job and the next day you don't. Those are the cases, or
Yeah.
but there's this there. I guess there's the breaking point of track or the threshold through those even those significant changes that even those thresholds have gradients. Like you didn't just lose your job out of the blue. There was something that led up to it, right? Um, and so if you look at just the various layers of your life, different chapters, subchapters, subsections, all those things have this blurring effect where you're really sure where you're at in your life, and then you start to feel shifts, and that gradient begins to change, take on a new color. In a sense, if you think about the color gradients of color from going to red, blue to yellow, it isn't just an extreme switch from yellow to blue. It's got this mixture of blue that comes in, like, and your yellow turns to, changes into certain shades, and you feel that change. You feel the differences, but you don't have language for it. And a lot of our life is that way. Relationships are that way. There's these shiftings. You can't give an idea. You can't give language to what you're feeling, and emotion precedes a lot of that. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's what I think a lot of stress sits around a lot of that uncertainty in the transitions. I think it was it was last year. It was last year. I don't know. 1 second ago, it was Ian Clayton says that I came to the realization just life is just transition, right? There's no like set, everything is in its place. Everything, there's something always transition in your life. There's always something ebbing while someone's flowing in and while something's flowing out. And there's this concept, I think, in culture that we have to arrive at this fixed place.
Yeah.
I do my 30 years and then I retire and then I'm fixed into that position. And you realize you get there, it doesn't happen. I look at my parents, they were both retired, but that they're having arrived, didn't arrive, you know, they're still making changes to their house. They haven't arrived. That's kind of the funny thing is that you think, oh, I got the new place. We got everything we wanted in this house. And then like 6 months later, you start talking about changing things. Like, oh, but I thought you got what you wanted. Well, yeah, but not really. So you're just constantly fixing and changing and shifting and always trying to arrive at some point and never really arriving at it. And I think that can be very infuriating for some people, especially if you've been fed the concept that if you do A, B, and C, then you'll get, you know, D, E, F, and maybe if you're really good, G and H, and life will be exactly how you wanted it because you planned it out properly. And when you
Yep.
finally hit that last checkbox, you're like, I did it, and you look around and it's not what you thought it was going to be. I think that gets really frustrating.
Yep.
And so you start hunting out the next the next task. And maybe this time, maybe this time, maybe this time. And if you're always looking to arrive at some point, you're never going to arrive at it because that's not the way life is framed or structured. Um, I know that when I was coming to that realization that life is just transition, I really had to start looking for what to anchor life into then. Because if it's not just graduating high school, graduating college, getting married, having kids, getting that big house, getting that property, um, reaching that retirement age, um, traveling, quitting your job and traveling, or writing that book, or building that business, or getting elected to that position, those will never satisfy because those are never the intention. And if that's not the goal anymore, if that is emptiness, if that's not really going to make you arrive, then what is it that we're after in this life? And walking through that season of revelation of transition and realizing everything's in transition and nothing's going to arrive at any point. Throw into that mix the idea that now I can actually try to work towards work. There's another issue right there. Arrive at transfiguration, you know.
Yep.
But you apply it to even our spiritual realm stuff. It's like, when I transfigure, then there'll be no more this or that. And I'll fully, I'm like, okay, when you arrive at transition, then what? What's after that? When you arrive at, you've become this great white ball of glory light, then what? It forced me to shift my focus away from arriving at anything and then turning into what only thing I could come to the point of saying is the purpose of his relationship with my father. That's the only thing that will give sense or credence to why I do anything in the face of earth. And even as I'm telling this right now, you know, the swirlies that I'm working through in the current transitions, you know, getting bent out of shape for certain things not working, I'm actually speaking to myself again, saying, hey, remember what this is. What's the importance of all this? It isn't about a name and a legacy. It isn't about obtaining to certain status, even in heaven. It's about a healthy, vibrant, flexible relationship with the one who created you and doing it forever. And if that's not fun for somebody, then man, your forever is going to suck. And you're going to struggle your whole existence trying to find value in obtaining to the next great iteration of yourself, the next great enlightenment, the next great secret unlocked, mystery unlocked. I just don't think that that's going to be, it's not got long life to it. And so all that to say that because of this walking through and chewing through this whole idea of arriving or obtaining and meeting that standard, that goal, I had to shift because I realized that the value in doing that often falls into the column of vanity, you know, vain imagination and vanity. And you start, I get to understand what Solomon was talking about. You know, I've done all these things, I've checked all the boxes, and yet I remain empty and incomplete. I mean, that's really the whole of his Ecclesiastes. And then he's like, I could take the approach, let's, you know, it's all vanity, so I'll just eat, drink, and die. That's pre-Christ, I guess. But then Christ opens up the door and says, you don't have to take that route. There is something that is not vain. It's not vain imagination, not a vain effort. And that is figuring out this relationship with the one that created you and just spending time, you know, sitting on there's a song called Sitting on the Dock. Actually, I don't think that's the name of the title, but this is the line, sitting on the dock of the bay.
Right.
You know, wasting time, just fishing, just not even worry about catching anything. Coming to a place where you just sit with Father without any grand purpose and saying, hey, this is it. I'm just going to sit here and hang out for eternity. And whatever comes, comes. Whatever happens, happens. But that's just kind of an afterthought, an afterflow of us just hanging out.
I think
When I
that's
read it,
where,
that changed a lot.
yeah, I think that's where the chaos and the uneasy feeling and what we feel of what's going on in the atmosphere and what's going on with everything, with all the shaking that's going on. Part of that is that we're sons of gods are waking up. And you have some people that are living in just what you described. They're still living. They don't realize that they don't have to live that way, but they're living to acquire one goal after the other, and they're so dissatisfied because they're looking for that completion of something to give them the most gratitude and the most accomplishment feeling and a great satisfaction. But then they realize, but there's more and there's never an end. But when you take it more on a spiritual side, you realize it's like the Hebraic circle, but a vortex where you're always circling around and your end comes back to a new beginning of the next thing. And you look at it that way, and we realize it was just like what I talked about. We had an identity, and it was rooted in emotion and focus, fear, and all of these things, lies, trying to survive, insecurity. But then we come back to the end of that, and we were at a new beginning where we learned, okay, here we are. We've awakened up to now we have love, we have feet, we have trust, we have truth, we have peace, we have relationship. Hey, guess what? We are powerful. And then you got to the end of that and you got a new beginning because it wasn't the end. You're circling around and the end starts something new where let's be in leadership. Let's have new strategies. Let's take what we've got and let's become who we're meant to be. Let's be confident. Let's impact others like what we're trying to do just by having a place to meet in community and relationship and just talk about these things and be uplifting about, hey, look, we don't have to worry about what's going on in the world of fear and doom and gloom and all of that. We can support one another and talk about other things that are going on as well that are more true than the lies that are out there going on that people are believing. And we can walk in some authority saying, hey, we're not dealing with that. We know that's a lie. And we rebuke that because we're not having that. That's not coming. That's not going to be a thought of mine. I'm taking that thought captive and bringing it to the obedience of Christ. And so then you can go into, again, another level because it's not ends. It's just a new level of your legacy and your identity and learning to be love and compassionate, learning to operate as sons and daughters, learning to be empowerment for others. So we're just like we're going forward so we can be a help to all those as they're waking up and to help them not be in those lies of all of that stuff that's going on even in you can do that even within your household. Like for me, when we joined one household with two families, yeah, sometimes it gets chaotic and sometimes it's shaky because when you're working through stuff, it can it won't be all really beautiful and wonderful and awesomeness. You still have to deal with some of the stuff, but it's how you deal with it. And when you get to the other side, hey, look, now we're a level higher. We're ready for a new beginning. We've learned to go from the lies to the truth, to a strategy, to the identity of who we are, from fear to love, to leadership, to legacy, from relationship to impact. Like we're actually walking this even in our day-to-day lives with family, even in your business, even like a business, like what we're doing, we work through that. We walk through it. There's times that you get to into that, but now it's more beautiful because you're at a higher place. You're ready, you're more mature, you're ready for a higher level, a new beginning for something else. And those new beginnings are a whole lot better when you look at it with God involved, out of relationship, compared to how the world's looking at it at, well, I'll finish this and it's not satisfying. We're saying we finished this, it was good to walk through it, but out of love, now we're moving to a higher level. What's the higher plane we're about to operate in? It's like a promotion.
Well, religion made pearly gates. We did that. And it feels like pearly gates are a response to suffering. I idealize the exit from my own prison. And so Yeshua, did he talk about pearly gates? Did he talk about a future realization? Hold on till then? I don't think so. I'm no expert here, but when I think about it, I can't fit that into what I know of what he said. It wasn't a future realization, it was now. And that was
Right.
2,000 years ago. We created the pearly gates. If I get here, I'll be free. I'll be satisfied. I'll be recompensed for what I'm enduring right now. And when I first stepped into the realization, what you were talking about with Aggie, of who I am, I still created a pearly gate. Once I transition, once I become a son, once I manifest as a king, once I see these physical manifestations of what I'm seeking after, well then, is it just another pearly gate? That just make another pearly gate? Another justification for suffering and for not having or not achieving? And we just make this pearly gate out in the future. Once we do this, once we transition from into that, and it's like, no, it's now. It's right now. It's right now. And if I do that, if I focus on the pearly gates, no matter what you call them, no matter how you define them, I'm focusing on something that isn't right here. It isn't tangible. And I'm putting my hopes into something that will happen. And I can see my own life. It takes away from the awe and wonder that surrounds me every day. And I get that when you're really suffering, it's like, man, I need some pearly gates, pal. Don't take
Right.
that from me, because this freaking hurts. But we live in a culture, and that changes things, whether I like it or not. Even if I'm countercultural, I'm still adhering to a culture. We live in a consumer culture. I mean, the whole Cold War, Russia was comrade and for the motherland and the people and together and community. And that of course was tainted. All of communism sounds good on the pamphlet, but they said, look, reject the American consumerism. And I don't think it's new. America didn't create consumerism, but man, we really, really adopted it and embraced it. And that idea is this thing, place, person, achievement, accomplishment will make you happy. And it's just not true. I can then IT work all throughout the years. I've been in so many really, really nice houses. People surrounded by amazing. There was a dude who had a castle that was pulled over here from Europe piece by piece, and it had Ferraris in the garage. But I didn't see happiness. Rarely have I seen happiness associated with achievement or possession. And does that mean you don't try to achieve anything? No, but it's obvious to me that it's not a package deal. Happiness and contentment doesn't come with any of the things that our culture says you're supposed to be spending your time on and you're supposed to be
Right.
pouring your efforts into. It's not. It's not a consistent. It doesn't. It happens, but it happens just as much on the other side of the tracks as it does in the in the nice gated communities. It's people who've chosen. I'm going to be happy here, and it's that idea of creating pearly gates. We're not. If we keep creating pearly gates, we're denying who we are right now. That whole ABC, then you'll get D, E, G, and blah blah blah. And I think I just said the alphabet wrong, but the like it doesn't. I jumped off the train quite a few years ago. I was like, man, forget this. What am I scrapping for? Throughout my entire 20s, I thought if I can just hit this milestone with income, if I can get this, vehicle. I was always it was always about vehicles, motorcycles, fast cars, something, and I achieved a few of those. I made more money than I ever had in 2014, and was in a position of leadership. And it's just a note in my ledger book. Like it's not. It doesn't do anything. Like I was. And so I said, forget it, man. I'm out. I don't. The same thing with sales. Like the carrot for the horse. I'm done. I'm done chasing the carrot.
Right.
But I do see it a truth in my own life. I keep creating my own carrots, and
Yeah.
it's a response to suffering of any kind, right? Whatever suffering you're
Well,
suffering is you're suffering.
and
You know,
let's be real about suffering. None of us are truly suffering
no,
here in our homes, in our seats currently. We've got some things we don't like. We got some things in disrepair, things that may not be up to the standard of our neighbor. We're not truly suffering,
no,
right? This the idea of comparison, I think, is one of the hardest things, one of the hardest challenges in walking in the different wineskin of uh trying to check the boxes, walking in a relationship context. It Because we're constantly surrounded with a culture, our relationships, our conversations, um, what we see in the cities and the streets and on television and social medias. It's all pushing about accomplishing or gaining this or moving into something greater or bigger.
pearly gates.
If you only do this, you'll get that. Constantly in our face, constantly a constant vibration on the face of the earth. And it's at war with our heart that says, I don't want to fight. I don't want to play that game. I want to be content in the relationship that I have with my Father, with my Creator, with those around me. I don't want to feel that I need to have something more to obtain or derive some sort of emotional positivity. And that's the struggle that at least that's what I experience is I'm constantly seeing the new car down the drive. When I drive to work and I see the car dealership and I see all these brand new cars and I look at my old beater and I think, wouldn't it be nice? Those little those little nuances that we see just driving through our world that are constant reminders of the rat race in a sense, right?
Right.
Or a common term. It's difficult. It makes it hard, especially when something goes broke. You're like, dang it.
Yeah,
And you start that whole grind again starts like, if only I've had this, if only I had that, then this would be an issue. And it pulls you right back into that old wineskin of thinking. And I think that's where we're at right now. We're as a family, we're trying to be more aggressive at those thoughts and cut them off before they get roots. Say, no, we're not playing that game. We're not
yeah,
gonna play the keeping up with the Joneses game. Why? Who says that I'm not content right now? What? Just because I don't have the 5-bedroom home that my neighbor has, that means I can't be happy. I can't be content. I can't find joy in where I'm at. It's a struggle for a lot of people. You make the declarations, I'm not going to journey, but then you are not going to go that way. But then living in a constant vibration of that's the way things are is easy to get sucked back into. You know, he like this is the thing that we talk about a lot in our house. Father is our source for everything, our all in all. But then we'll slowly have something come up and like, oh, we need to find a way to resource that. We need to find a way to fix it. And so we get online and we start doing a search for the next thing, the next solution for that. And then we forget, oh, wait, I didn't turn into him for that source. And that's where we're at as a family, is we're saying, no, we're going to stop that cycle. When something comes up, we're going to be aggressive about turning in. We're going to hold him to his word. And he says he's our source, and he's going to be our source. And we're going to lean on him. And it positions ourselves in two ways. One, to actually receive him as that source. And two, to continue to reinforce the desire not to play that game, not to find some external answer for what he was intended to answer. And that's that can be applied to all areas of walk of life, relationships, physical health, household stuff, jobs, anything and everything, finances this can be applied to. It's not easy. There's no manual for it.
No.
There's no manual to understand this relationship with Yahweh and how he is going to meet his need for you. There's lots of examples in scripture and how he's met others, and even in people in the lives and relationships around you, there's examples of that. But how is he going to meet it for you is going to be unique, and that's kind of scary, because we would rather just say, okay, this is how he responded to so and so, so this is how he's going to respond to me. And it may be a similarity, it might happen, but the truth of the matter, as you grow in maturity and relationship with him, he's going to change things up so that you really lean upon your personal relationship with him, your personal connection, for how he's going to supply your need for whatever given situation that's before you, whatever pain point is currently in front of your face and is taking up the full view. You know, that's scary to some people. And it's scary to me sometimes, because I make some declarations, you're my source, and then I get in a situation where he needs to be my source, and I'm expecting him to answer just like he answered for somebody else, and he doesn't. And it leaves this kind of high and dry feeling, right? Like, but what
Yeah, it
about me?
shakes the whole foundation.
And
It shakes
he
it at a
keeps
deep level.
right. And that's a testing that he allows to happen, because he's reinforcing the desire for intimate connection with us that's unique unto ourselves, so that our testimony isn't based upon somebody else's testimony of his goodness, but our testimony is based on our actual experience with him and his goodness to move on our behalf in the unique design that he planned for us. I think that's the striving, that's the work that's not always fun, because going back to the transition thing, the transition from declaring that he is good and he's going to take care of me, and transitioning into the manifestation of that, can be a nightmare for some people. You know,
Yeah.
we've all heard the story of Chris Blackaby, and multiple stories of this very thing, where this time he met, this time he didn't, as what he meant it this way, and this time he meant a different way, and so transition between the two was nail biting, because I expected him to go this way and he didn't, and it causes people to, I think it causes people to lose faith and walk away. It's a testing of the heart and soul to the loyalty of his goodness, and some people just can't do it. Some people just say, I can't do this no more. I can't do this up and down, and they lose faith and they move on to something else. They go off into their own strength, find some other resource. And I get it. I have no judgment on any people like that, because I've stood in those places where my own faith is tested. My own desire to give up I've confronted that specter sometimes and said, this isn't fun. There's no consistency. There's no, I like consistency. I like scientific format of things. When you do A and B, you get C. I like that. It I can build a world around that. I can predict how things are going to fall out. I can structure the course of my life based on the consistency of A plus B equals C.
The grit.
But then when you
That puts
you
us in
join
our own
yourself,
strength, right?
right? Well, yeah. When you join yourself to the Father, and He's like, well, A and B don't always equal C for me.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's X, Y, Z. And I'll let you know when that's going to happen. You're just going to have to trust me. And I'm like, I don't think I can work in that construct so well. So, but His grace and mercy, for some reason, the beauty of it is that He meets us in that place of grace space where, in our immaturity, we want A and B to equal C, but He's saying it's not going to happen. He's going to go some other route, but I have to trust in Him. And there's this covering that allows us to walk through that transition where we can fully say, all right, we're going to work this out in our relationship. You want me to do this, but I'm not gonna, and you're gonna throw tantrums, but I'm good with that. And we'll work this through, and eventually you'll understand why A and B don't always equal C, and why it doesn't have to equal C, because it's not about, again, checking the boxes. It's about this relationship tangent that,
If it doesn't equal C, that means it's going to equal something usually that's better. That's been my experience. Because I'm just thinking of one time when my husband was applying for the job that over on the coast and he didn't get it, and all kind of weird things happened. Like it just didn't go through the computer, and then by the time he realized it didn't send and they didn't receive it, the time to put in your application was gone, and so he then, as a result, there come another job opportunity really within days after, and it was really the one that he would rather have. So he put in for that one, and then he ended up getting that job. But it affected him emotionally because he really was wanting that job. And I was at a place at that time where I said, no, we have to trust the Father. If it's meant to be, it'll come back. We either trust Him right now or we don't. And
right,
that's going to have to be our stand. And even if you want it, if it's not meant to be, He has something else, and it'd be something else that's better, something different. And and it was true, and it did happen. But and to go back on Eric talking about the pearly gates, with Jesus didn't really say, oh, there's going to be pearly gates and that's when everything's going to be fine. And until then, it's not going to be great, but it's going to be great when you die and when you get to heaven. And you're right, Eric, he didn't. He said, as I am in this world, so are you. And all of the things I go to prepare a place for you. But in doing that, He's going to come and as the Holy Spirit to live within us, to be able to touch more and do more, because He can do it through so many more, not just as one God man. And so everything that He did, He said we were going to do even more. And so there was great opportunity that He talked about while He was here, that we were going to have while we lived, while we were here on this earth, at whatever time that was your perfect timing to be here. And then the word went on to say, the word, which was Yeshua, went on to say that in all things give thanks and be grateful. And just what Jeff was talking about. So when those situations don't look like the way we want to, He's asked us to trust Him and to give thanks and to be grateful and to trust Him. So it's exactly what we're learning and exercising and practicing. And as we do that, we mature and we start realizing the benefits of that.
Right. I think the whole premise, the end times eschatology concept of everything's going to be turned upside down, anything that can be shaken will be shaken. We see it as a negative, which in certain lights it is a negative. It's a
Right.
major negative. But viewing it from the eye of the Father, it's a massive positive, because what he's attempting to do in the shaking is to reveal to us these things are not stable for you. They're not consistencies that you can lean upon. I'm shaking these things to show you what is unshakable, right? This is a comparison to Elijah on the Mount Carmel. What can be shaken is shaken, and what can't be shaken will not be shaken, and you will be able to tell the difference. So we live in a time right now where everything is being shaken. Everything is not what it seems. Everything is not consistently supplying your expectations. What was familiar and consistent yesterday is now different, and we're constantly recomputing, recomputing our course, realizing, oh, that's an unsteady step. We can't step on that anymore. We got to take a different pathway. And so Yahweh is allowing these things to be frail and brittle and shaky in their stability, so that we can see the comparison that he is not, and he's not shakable. He's steady and firm, and what he says he is will be consistent. Even the trappings that we have put upon him in our own machinations of Christianity, the doctrines and the applications of interpretation of who he is and what he says he is, what he says he's going to do for us, that we have framed up around him. You know, it's almost like there's the image of Yahweh that he is affirmed through the course of mankind. And then on the image of Yahweh is all of these trappings that we put, these extra structures and frameworks around him that we have used to help define him for ourselves, to give justification for one belief or another, a justification for one action over another. And we've added to the image of him. And then we say, well, that's our God right there. Isn't he beautiful? He works out so well for me. And then, and then a shaking comes, an earthquake, and everything that is not of the original image begins to shake and fall off like scaffolding around a building. And you begin to realize, oh, what I had thought was your image, or who you thought, or you performed this way, or you looked this way, was an added facade to the real image. And in your goodness, you allow me to see all that shaken off and allow me to see you as you really are. So even our image of who he is being shaken on purpose by him. He's allowing this to happen so that we can really find the pure image of our Father, the pure character, without all of the additives of man's aberrations and ideologies. And that's the positive aspect of this. We're casting off restraints of men, not of him, and pursuing him. But it's causing a lot of us to rethink how we do life in a lot of ways. So it's beneficial to live in this season, in this day and age, because we get to see the shaking, and we get to venture into experiencing the true image of our Father as he intended it to be, as he intended the relationship to be, and deal with all those trappings that we've placed on him, the world's placed on him, and begin to step into what really is valuable, what really is important eternally and exclusively.
That feels real. That feels like it doesn't wear off. That feels eternal. That I mean, the material, keeping up with the Joneses, it's an easy one to shoot down, right? Like it's pretty easy. It's but the trappings of religion and not now, but maybe later, that's harder. It's harder to because I don't know where I'm going with this. What you just said is accessible now and doesn't fade. It that doesn't get shaken. My remembrance of it, or my, was that real? Is it, maybe that gets shaken in a moment, but it's eternal. That's something that the Carnegies of our culture that will forget their names in time. Very few of the accomplishments that we say was really valuable is remembered over time. It's forgotten. It's insignificant. But that's something like the Carnegie of the world, when he achieves that connection, that relationship, that person is still enjoying that right now. It's been built upon. It doesn't shake. It's not something I have to put off till.
You just lost me.
I was thinking about, I think part of what we have to learn to work around is we have such a great imagination. We're very creative beings. We talk the not keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. But it's hard to do because our imagination, like I'll just use myself for an example. So living here, I can see all these rocks gone and I can see a nice concrete driveway. I can see this beautiful fence all around the property. I can see this magnificent, not over the board top, but this magnificent pool, swimming pool in the backyard. And all of these things, I can imagine this property a certain way, all the fruit trees out there, everything flourishing. And I can imagine all of these things. But what the world says, you can have those things, but it takes money. And then if we look at it from that standpoint, then we know what it takes to get the money. If we're not
Right.
manifesting out of our storehouse supernaturally, we have to give everything of ourselves to go out and work and give everything else up to get those things.
Right.
And then we decide, okay, well, it's what's worth it? What do we really, really need? And then that sort of sets our boundaries for it. What does God really want me to have? What is Yahweh's plan for
Right.
me? And then it kind of gets us back into more of a balanced perspective. But it's not a bad thing to think all of those things and have those desires, because if he wants you to have them, he will work out a way, and it can be supernatural and it can be whatever. But we in our minds, we're able to do so much more than we're able to physically manifest supernaturally.
Right. And I agree. We're creative beings. We're designed to create. I think we actually are quite limited in our imagination and creativity. Some of the capacities that were originally intended to operate in are greatly diminished, right?
Right.
But even in what we have right now to create and to imagine, we can do pretty wild things, pretty imaginative, pretty magnificent manifestations of that creative design internally, and bring it to manifestation in the earth. And because of that, we have the propensity to go beyond, like you're saying, to do things that may not necessarily are appropriate or beneficial in the above the sun sense, right? There, what does Paul say? All things are permissible, or many things are permissible, but not necessarily what we should be doing.
Right.
And I think that's where we have the uh, propensity to fall into going after the Joneses, keeping up the Joneses. If we don't keep that in check in the relationship, then we chase after these things. We find ourselves frustrated again, find ourselves in struggle and strife again over these things when we didn't pause at the beginning and say, should I do this, Father, in the first place? Should this be done? Is this even beneficial for who I am as a being? Is this beneficial for what you're intending to do? And not having that conversation up front. We run headlong into this is a great idea, but we never first asked the question whether it should be approached, if it should be done at all.
Right.
And I think
That's
that's
awesome.
the check and balances I
Mhm.
think we need to have more, not less of. Um, it's like I always talk about getting that next cool implement piece of equipment to do whatever I need. If I only had this particular equipment power tool, then I could do A, B, and C. And then my mind in more recent years, it's like, okay, well, if you get this tool, now you've got to manage its maintenance. You bought it, but now you got to keep it running. And now you got extra responsibilities, extra duties to keep it going. And then if that breaks, then you got to throw more money after it. Is this really, yeah, it's a great idea to have it. Is it really what you need to have in this time frame? Can you sustain this blessing? Or will it become a frustration and a curse, to at the extreme end, to your life? Will it become a stumbling block because now it's actually not a benefit, it's now a burden? And I think that's the issue that we don't consider often when we're taking our creative imagination and applying it to creating or to apprehending or to gaining something that we think will be beneficial. We don't think about its potential for being a burden upon our lives. And if we have that conversation with the Father beginning, I think we can mitigate a lot of that stuff, or at least have the conversation and realize with this privilege comes responsibility. Are you ready for the responsibility? Are you ready for the added burden? Are you capable? And then in that dialogue, in that relationship with the Father, you can arrive at that yes or no. No, I really don't think I can be responsible, or I don't think I want that burden at this time. So then maybe I shouldn't step into that. Maybe I shouldn't pursue that venture at this time until uh, the time is right. The capabilities are, the resources are there. Those are dialogues with the Father, with wisdom, that I think need to have more often, not. And I don't think that most sons and daughters do that with him. They just think, God said he's going to bless me. I'm just going to take a step out there and we're going to go after it. Well, he will. He hasn't said he's not going to bless you, but there are going to be some additional lessons learned and some additional relational developments and personal development skills that are going to be worked on because um, you've added on some extra work that wasn't necessary at this time. But he's good and faithful to carry us through that stuff. I think that he works all things for our good. I just
Right.
get in that place where I'm like, I don't want to add things in where you have to do your magic to make something that was bad work for my good. I'd rather just avoid adding to the troubles of the day. As Christ says, there's enough troubles in the day as well. Why would you add more to it? Why worry about tomorrow's troubles? There's enough today. I'm at that place where I'm like, I'm not interested in adding to my troubles. If there's enough there, let's just stick with what's available.
Right.
Let's just stick with what we're dealing with. And then when you say march, we'll march. You say move this way, we'll move this way. But that's
I'm thinking of
all born out of
I'm thinking
relationship
about the
and
Joneses
communication.
now and the people that want to keep up with him, but they don't see all of what it takes to be the Joneses. And
Right.
the Joneses have committed, I'm going to work this job that's going to require me to work many hours, a lot of overtime, or I'm going to work this job that's very stressful because it's high paid and I can have a really nice house and I can have the fancy cars. And so they tie themselves up to these things that now are commitments that they have to work this job in order to make these payments and to have these things. And like you said, do they think it through or do we think it through? Okay, well, now I have to upkeep this house. I have to cool this house. I have to furnish this house. I have a pool. I have to maintain this pool. I have to keep this pool clean. I want this big garden and this big fish, look, this pond out front. Well, that has to be maintained. I want a goldfish pond or a koi pond, and we got to keep that cleaned and keep that managed and going. Everything that you have, I realized as I've matured and gotten more numbers to my age, that if I'm going to do something, I think about it has to be maintained and what it's going to take to maintain it, and is it worth it to me because to take my time to do that. And the Joneses may be tied to these notes now, and there may be an opportunity if they had a smaller house or they didn't have the expensive car, they could get out from underneath that job and they could say, well, I could do this job, but if I want out, I can, and I could go to a job, less stress. Maybe it's something that I really love and enjoy doing. Maybe it's something that is written on my scroll and I could do those things and be a lot happier, but they don't have the opportunity to switch now because they've taken the opportunity and jumped into this house and this car note that now they're committed to. So that you work the job and it doesn't matter if you like it, if you love it, or you want to keep doing it, or it's too stressful. Now you have to do it. And so now they're very unhappy. They've got the fine house, they've got the fine cars, but they're very unhappy because now it's committed. They don't, the family's getting off. They want to take a family vacation. They can't because they're tied to a job. They can't do the things that they want to. They can't go do the things that they would enjoy and go fishing or go golfing or go do whatever they want to do because they're tied to these things that are now commitments. And I've seen this and I've seen people do this, and really there's no way out until there is a way out.
We just need a better class of Joneses. You need to up your game. Yeah, you got to buy that car with no note on it. You got to get a groundskeeper. Hey, you know what? I could hire people to live on my yacht. Just live like their whole lives on my yacht. You need to up your Joneses. But it's still a trap. It's
It
still a
is.
trap. But not that it doesn't work. I'm sure there is an example on the face of the earth of somebody who is, and plenty of them, as far as that goes, that don't feel trapped in wealth and success. They got it. It works. They don't have those
To some
problems.
degree. To some
To some
degree,
degree,
right?
it
Yeah.
happens. I'm not saying it's common, but it
Well,
exists.
and that is the trap, right? So it's even if you're born into wealth, there's plenty of examples of children who have heirs to grand estates and
Sure.
inheritances,
Yep.
and they don't, they're just continually trying to meet the next convenience. I don't feel happy, so if I do this, then I'll get happy. And then they get that point. It's never, even if you have the good groundskeepers, even if you get someone to live in on a yacht, because there's an emptiness to it.
Yeah.
There's a real emptiness to it. Then I've never had a yacht, so I don't know what that experience is, but I know the human experience,
Right.
and that ticking the box has an emptiness to it. It's like, what now? It's like bought a new Lego set, built the set. Now what?
Yeah.
Goes into another bin. I just keep adding to that. It's like there's just it's empty. I'm bored. I'm bored with this.
Yeah.
There's
You just have a
another
different
way.
class of discomfort
Right.
that you
Right.
generate.
Yeah. I'm not I'm not naked. I'm not starving. I'm not
Correct.
cold.
Yeah.
Right. I've got shoes on my feet. Right. I don't deal with those primal pain points, but I got some emotional pain points that just will never go away. Right. I've got
Yeah.
some existential pain points that just won't be answered in the next Ferrari.
Right.
There's another road to this. There's another route, and it's offloading all that stuff.
Sure.
It's saying, you know what? If this isn't gonna, if doing the same thing and expecting different results is insanity, then why do I continue this pathway? Let's go the other way, right? Let's offload it. I don't need that tractor. I don't need that extra car. I don't need a big mansion. I don't need all of this extra stuff to find contentment. That's the other direction. I
Sure.
think to some degree, that's the route that uh to some degree that's the route that I'm going internally. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, so I gotta do manual labor to move this stone. I don't, yeah, okay. Or why do I need to move the stone?
Right.
Right? That's the other thing. It's like it's caused me to ask the questions. Well, why you want to get this thing, but why do you need to go on vacation?
Right.
Like, is your life not in shalom where you live that you need to escape it for a time? These are actual questions that I ask. Why do you need to have this? Because you're not content in where you're at because there's no shalom in what you're. So you think by doing this or getting that, you're going to find shalom?
Yeah, and it's a cultural trope that people need to take vacation from their vacation. There's a reason that's become such common cultural language is
Well,
because
it
it's a
certainly is
truth.
our culture because the people in third world countries aren't talking about vacations.
Right. It's just
I
that
mean,
yeah, you choose the
like,
struggle that that is imposed upon you. I don't have
but
this, so I
I
want that.
think
Like if I'm gonna choose struggles, the empty driveway is less appealing than the driveway filled with something I have to maintain. But it's
yeah,
but it doesn't fill the gap. It doesn't, and it's obvious that it doesn't. It's so
it's
obvious
you
that
think
we
about
joke about it.
this, you think about cultures, let's say just cultures in the bush,
Hmm.
African bush, Australian
Yeah,
bush,
yeah, and remove the
these cultures that
material
have
acquisition question.
generation after generation, they do the same thing over and over again. And we think, whoa, that's monotony. All you do is you do the same thing every day. You go out and you hunt, you come home and you cook it. And where's the legacy? Where's the value? And like we are so in our Western culture so ingrained in this accomplishment, next
Yes.
grade, next grade, next grade, next grade.
Yep.
And that's like a foreign concept to many of these other cultures where centuries that nothing's changed in technology. And yet the happiness in the culture is the same. The contentment's still there. And you have to ask yourself why? What is it? It's community, it's relationship, it's just the simplicity, the shalom. I think really what it is the shalom, that there's a contentment that supersedes the need to accomplish something in the earth. Um, in the Western mindset. I think when we got the first great commandment, which was be fruitful and multiply, I don't think we interpret it too well in our day and age. I think
Okay,
we
what is
missed the
fruitful?
mark on what it means to be fruitful and multiply in the
Yeah.
earth, as it was given originally to Adam and Eve.
What's
And I
compounding
think
interest,
that,
right?
yeah, it's compounding. Yeah.
I thought we answered that. Yeah, no, we didn't.
No, I think that that's the real secret, is to go discover really what it means to be fruitful and multiply according to the original intent. And then we'll discover that most of what we try to do in the earth, even with good intentions, in even the kingdom realms people, the interpretation, the application isn't on par to what he intended. Um, it most likely is very counterculture. What Father intends for being fruitful and multiply is counterculture to this day and age.
Yeah.
And dramatically fanatical. Um, the philosophical concepts that surround it are like apples to oranges to what we think. Um, but as long as we continue to look at apples and be engrossed by them, we'll never turn our eyes towards the oranges and say, oh. But here's the crazy thing about it, the beautiful thing about it. Father loves to upend apple carts so that he'll get his people to look at the oranges. There's no way to avoid that journey. If you say yes, he's going to bring you to an orange cart eventually. He's going to
Yeah.
take your apple carts and turn it upside down, but he's going to make you desire it. That's like, he's really good at reverse psychology. He's going to make it think it's your idea because he's constantly picking at the axle of your apple cart. He's constantly working to cause you to shift your view to something else because the dissatisfaction, discontent, the lack of shalom in what you're doing. If you continually say yes to him, he's going to whittle away at those things. And we tell our boys, this is an opportunity. Don't look at it as a negative. This is an opportunity to turn into that yes you said yesterday and embrace the transformation that's coming in this opportunity of discomfort. If you'll let it have its full effect, it'll awaken something that will bring you into a new pasture or bring you into a new place of viewpoint, a new perspective, where the things you desired yesterday that you think you couldn't live without no longer are applicable. They're obsolete. They have no value because you've shifted away from the apples to a viewpoint of an orange. And he's he's calling us all to be fruitful and multiply, but not as the world does it, but as he intended originally. But there's a lot of buildup, a lot of extraneous things that we've added to it over the generations. I mean, again, doctrines of men, imaginations, and ideologies that we thought were good ideas that were part of our limited interpretation of what he said to do. And we've added and added and added, just like the Pharisees over the generations, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laws on top of the main 10, because it just made sense to them. But it got them further and further away from the original intent, the original heart. So Father is in the process of breaking those things off to come back to the original intent of being fruitful and multiply. He's shaking things that we thought were part of that concept and removing them so that we can really see what do you mean by being fruitful? What do you mean by by multiplying? Because everything that I've tried to put my hand to make that happen is failing miserably. And the things I succeed are just empty boxes to me now. What is it? That first commandment, that first instruction that you gave to mankind, what does that really look like when a son and a daughter arrive, come to that revelation of being fruitful and multiplying in the earth and in creation? And whatever that is, I want that. Because at this point, everything else is empty. Everything else has been tried, and there's nothing new under the sun. Again, back to Solomon. There's nothing new under the sun. It's already been done. Just new ways of doing the same stuff over and over and over again. It's empty.
Well,
But
and we've been
what you call
fruitful.
us to isn't.
I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. We've hardwired the whole freaking globe. That, by some definition, we've been freaking fruitful and we've multiplied many times over. So that must not be it. That must not be it. Otherwise, we're already there. We did it. Check box. Fruitful and multiplied 8 billion times over and still going. So there must be something we're missing in the idea of what that means, because we've been fruitful and multiplied. I even
Right.
multiplied. I got a little kid in there. I've multiplied.
Yeah, what if you multiplied them, right? That's it. Like Adina was saying, but from which father did we multiply from?
Right.
Right? That's a good statement. That's a true statement. Like, what are we actually multiplying? What tree are we replanting from? Because that has a lot to do with the pains in the earth of what, like going back to like the original I was saying, Father's original intent for fruitful and multiply. If we're multiplying the wrong thing and reproducing the wrong thing, then I think we've got off course as a species in a major way, and we're producing and multiplying the wrong things.
Right. What was his
We're
definition
yeah,
of
what
things
was
we
his
are
intention?
to, yeah, to be fruitful and multiply? Are we supposed to be multiplying in the cosmos? Are we supposed to be creating something like what did he mean by that?
Yeah. And it can't remain academic and it can't remain hypothetical. It has to meet us where we're at every day, every time
Right.
we get out of bed, every time we do something with family, with our house. It has to be applicable to those circumstances. Otherwise, if it stays in the academic, it stays in the ethereal, then we will never transition away from continuing the chase after the Joneses.
Early
Everything in our
gates.
household has to be looked at and asked the question, why? Why are we producing this? Why
Yeah.
are we continuing the cycle? And is it necessary? Is it beneficial? And if not, then let's get it out. Let's stop. Let's shift away. But we're addressing that at the where rubber meets the ground. Every aspect of our lives, what we buy, what we eat, what we wear, what we talk about, what we put in front of our faces. Everything gets applied with that application. How is this being fruitful? How is this allowing us to be multipliers? You know, we haven't got dialed in, obviously. It's a journey, but that is the only, for me, it's the only thing left to respond to action and purpose in the earth. Okay, I have a relationship with my father, and I'm called to be creative and be uh, active and to be doing something, multiplying and being fruitful. So if I've got to be fruitful and multiply, then I need to find out what's that. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. And that's where I'm at now in my life. Relationship primary, and then now out of the outflow, be fruitful, multiply, and then everything gets strained through that filter. And if it doesn't, then what's the point, right? If it's bells and whistles and all this fruitful stuff, like Eric, we've talked about this sometimes with tech stuff. Like, yeah, they could do that, but why?
Yeah.
What's the value behind doing this? Just because this is what the market says you need to do, just as because everybody else is doing this kind of way of doing stuff, we have to do it, and then you create this new process that then you've got to maintain again, like
Yep.
added work, just so that we can say, oh, we're doing the right all things that to make ourselves visible or uh out there, and cutting edge. And it's like, why? What's the point of it? What's the value of it? Is it truly falling into that original intent of multiplication, of being fruitful? Or is it just spinning our wheels again and reproducing the same ad nauseum that we've been doing for forever, in the timeline
Right.
of man.
You're choosing the arena, and then don't like the fight.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I chose that arena. Maybe I don't have to choose that arena. Boom, fight's gone. I don't have to fight. Yeah,
we don't have
it's
to fight.
yeah.
Nope,
That is countercultural.
it is, and you can't do it alone.
No, we weren't
So
supposed
join
to.
ATS and join us as we go on this journey to be counterculture.
That's right.
Yep. Speaking of ATS, we have a website, people. If you want to check it out,
Yep.
abovethesun.io. And this is for all those who don't watch recording. If you want to be part of the community and a part of this conversation, everybody's welcome. You can check us out on that website, and we're got a Twitter account. We have Telegram. There's a lot of places where you can find us. But we welcome anybody and everybody to journey with us in this discovery of counterculture, real life, real value, real relationships.
Real pearly
So,
gates.
anything else? We're at the top. We're actually past the top of the hour. If you guys didn't notice
Right.
that, like I was just looking at the watch. And, oh my gosh, it's 20 minutes after.
Oh
So
wow. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess we're gonna close shop here and pick this back up next week.
Yeah. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Yeah. And